Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. In this short tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how you can make the speed or performance animated pie charts directly in PowerPoint. So let's jump straight into it. As usual, we'll start with a blank presentation. So we'll go File, Blank Presentation, right click on this and choose Layout and then Blank. First, we're going to use an arc to create the outline for this pie chart. And if it's not in your recently used shapes, you'll find it on the third line of basic shapes right at the end called arc. We click on that and then click anywhere on the page and you'll get this quarter arc. In my example, I want this to be about double the size. So under shape format, I'm going to select 5.5 for the height and 5.5 for the width. You can set yours to whatever you like as long as these are both the same to keep it a perfect circle. And the idea will be that you can click on this yellow dot and drag it to whatever value you want. We'll start with something about here. If we right click, go to Format Shape, Line, and for the end arrow type, I'm going to choose this last one here, which is an oval arrow. And then for the end arrow size, I'm going to choose the largest one. I'm also going to choose 2 point for the width. And while it's selected, we'll choose Gradient Line. I have two reference colors here that I want to use. You can use any colours you think looks good. So we can drag away these or click on them and then click on this button here to remove the gradient stop. And the one on the left, I'm going to make the green by going to the eyedropper tool and rolling over my reference colour. And the one on the right, I'm going to choose the blue. And I'm going to choose the direction linear right, which is the fourth one here. Again, you can choose anything you think looks good. So we can easily see what we're doing. I'm going to format the background. Just a solid fill and a mid-grey for now. We're going to change this later. But now we can adjust this by clicking on the yellow dot and dragging around as we need to. And so underneath this, I'm going to have a semi-transparent white line. So I'll press Ctrl D to duplicate that. We'll just create the white line first by filling it with the solid line and making it white, and then adjusting the transparency to 80%. I'm going to hold down Shift, click on this arrow at the top and then drag round. I want it there, but in this one I don't need any end arrow, so I can go to end arrow type and choose no arrow. I'm going to bring these in a little bit more, so you can click on the little yellow dots and drag in. For reference, you can always add something like a rectangle to make sure they're in exactly the right place. That looks good. I'm now going to rotate this one, so holding down Shift and then clicking on the circle at the top and dragging it round. Now we need to align both of them, so we'll click, drag over them, then go to Arrange, Align, Align Center, Arrange, Align, Align Middle. I want the grey one to be at the back, so I can click on that, right click and say Center Back. Now I can adjust this one to the start point here, and this one can be at any end point we want. In my example, one of them was about here. But the great thing about this is that once we've created it, it can be easily adjusted to show any value. So I'll select this by clicking and dragging over it, press Ctrl D to make a new one, drag it to wherever I want, making sure it's perfectly aligned. The smart guides will appear to help you do this. You can hold down Shift and drag it over to create whatever space you want between these two elements. Now if I select them both, Ctrl G to group, then Arrange, Align, Align Center. We can now click on this one, ungroup everything, group, ungroup, and click on this little yellow dot and drag it back to whatever value we want. In my example, I had it about there. Now we can add our text. So I'll go up to Drawing, select Text Box, click in here and type my text. In my example, I had this at 36 size, this at 18. This was also bold, so Ctrl B. Then I made it all fig tree. I also centered it and dragged it into position. I'm also going to make it white. Click on this sideline here, hold down Ctrl and Shift and drag it over for this one. Change the figure to whatever I want. Now I'm quickly going to add any text I want at the top. In this case, I typed your speed and our speed. Align it into the position I want. Click on this, hold down Ctrl and Shift and drag to make the other one. Make sure these are aligned. Change this to our speed, make sure it's aligned by holding down Shift and dragging until the smart guides appear. Choose the font we want. Fig tree, bold and white. That's looking great. Now let's add the animation, and then finally we can add the background and the panel. So for the animation, I'm going to use a spin. This will probably spin okay because it's a perfect circle. But if we look here and go to animations and click spin, you'll see that it doesn't work at all because it's not a perfect circle. But we can easily fix that by grouping it with a circle and then making the circle have no fill and no line. So we can go to oval in the drawing menu. Then we can click anywhere. There's our circle. I'll hold down Shift to keep it a perfect circle as I drag it across. And as long as it's bigger than it, that will work perfectly. As long as it's centered, I'll do center back. I'll align it so it's perfectly aligned and then just double check by selecting everything and pressing center and center again. So now, while this is selected, I'll hold down Shift and then click on my data point here. Then Control G to group. And now when we go to animations and add spin, you'll see it spins perfectly. Nice. And now we can click on this circle, make sure just the circle is selected, so click a second time, and now we've just selected this blue circle. Then go to shape fill and choose no fill, and the same for outline. Now when we run this, it'll look really good, but we're just going to add something else to the animation. So we'll click on it, go to animations, animation pane. I'm going to add a fade, so it starts with a fade. We're going to add animation and then choosing fade, but I want to click on this and drag it up so it's the first thing that happens. Then I want the spin to happen with previous, and I also want it to have a smooth end, so we'll double click, drag smooth end out to the right and click OK. Now when we run this, it will fade in and spin round, which I think is a really nice effect. And by adding this effect, it means we can actually change this to anything we want by dragging this yellow dot, and it will work perfectly with the animation and look really good. So I'll just Control Z to put that back to where it was. Now we want to add the animation to this bit. We have two ways of doing this here. We could add the circle again and group them and add the animation. But one quick way of doing it, now I've already created it over here, is just to simply copy it across. So I can click and actually delete these. Now we can copy this across and it will have all the animation in it, and then we can just quickly adjust this to whatever figure we want. So we want to make sure it's all selected, so we'll drag over the whole thing, then click on this line, hold down Control and Shift and drag it across. Now we can easily change this to our new figure. Then we can select our value by clicking on it once and then clicking on it again and then dragging the yellow dot to wherever we want it, and the animation will automatically be in there. Nice. We can also change this to fade up at the same time as the animation happens around the outside. So I'll set that to happen with previous and then drag it up. And the same for this. Fade, start with previous, then we'll run that. That's looking great. We'll just quickly add the background and then we're done. So you can add any background you want. If we right click and choose Format Background, I'm going to select Picture or Texture Fill, then insert Stock Images. I typed blue lights and chose this one here. Then we're going to add a panel. For that, I just chose a simple rectangle, dragged it out like this, made sure it was aligned to the center by going Arrange, Align Center, Arrange, Align Middle, then right click and center back. I'm going to make this black with no outline and then set the transparency to about 80%. You can adjust this to whatever you think looks good. And if you want to move everything down slightly, as I do very slightly on here, you can select all these parts in the middle, roll over one of the lines, hold down Shift and drag down slightly. Now we have a really nice looking pie chart that can be used to display any value. It animates really nicely, it looks really good, and we can easily change it to any figure we want. And if you'd like to download any of the source files from any of my tutorials, there's a link to my Patreon in the description below. And if you want to become a PowerPoint expert, watch one of the next videos. Thanks very much for watching. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more, click subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.